1887, Hertz demonstrates the existence of radio waves. 1902, Marconi's historic transatlantic radio transmission. 1907, DeForest invents the Audion. 1912, Armstrong invents regeneration. 1920, radio station KDKA begins broadcasting. 1939, RCA demonstrates television at the New York World's Fair. 1947, Bell Labs invents the transistor. And 1992, Tony Flanagan starts the New Jersey Antique Radio Club. In the summer of 1992, Tony Flanagan placed ads in local New Jersey newspapers and in Antique Radio Classified magazine announcing his intention to form New Jersey's first antique radio club. On July 16, 1992, 15 collectors gathered at the Monmouth County Library to found what has become the New Jersey Antique Radio Club. The club grew to over 60 members in its first year and currently numbers approximately 200. Several of the charter members are still active in the club. Tony served as president of the club for its first 4 years, with his wife Kathleen serving as secretary, before turning the reins over to the club's second president, Jim Whartonby.
Well, it was very tough to fill Tony's shoes. Tony's style and my style were very, very different. His was coming from the aesthetics point of view, not from the technical. I think he was surprised how much technical talent was available and how many people were interested in radios. And I mean, he certainly was the magnet. He's the one that got everything together and up and running. And I think we all owe a great debt to him for getting the club up and running.
Tony's original vision for the club quickly grew to include activities such as regular monthly meetings, a monthly newsletter, antique radio swap meets held several times a year, a tube program, capacitor program, repair clinic, website, and other programs to provide members with better access to increasingly scarce restoration resources.
The New Jersey Antique Radio Club proudly presents its 2001 Tony Flanagan Memorial Award to Ludwell Sibley.
Each year, the club presents the Tony Flanagan Memorial Award to a collector exemplifying extraordinary dedication to furthering the antique radio hobby. Most recently, the club has joined forces with InfoAge to help preserve and promote antique radio history, and we look forward to making a permanent home in an InfoAge building on Marconi Drive in the near future. Our monthly meetings frequently feature a perennial favorite, show and tell sessions, where members bring in a rare or otherwise interesting item from their collections to share with the club. In 10 years of show and tell, there have been some doozies.
I notice at the meetings that the chairman has to yell to get the meeting going. Nobody listens. So keeping the radio. This is a pair of 82 on there, and the bottom handle is a resistor. You know your color codes? You know what the value is. It's solid walnut. And you can wrap it on a table every once in a while, and if you could maybe pass it on to the next.
This will definitely be passed on to the next administration.
That's exactly the size of your 80s. That's copied from one of them and stamped.
Thank you very much.
This is tube name. It's labeled Barb Beaverman.
What's the cycle? Say on it. Oh, and I'm riding the New Jersey broadcaster.
This is known as a gigantus antennas Screw'em-upicus. It's an antenna bug.
And this was my display that I had at Rochester. And I've had this radio since, this is the one that started the insanity.
This particular set here is Zenith 9S 232. I guess it's better known as the Waltons. My middle son is a professional carpenter by trade, and he came down with this hereditary disease called radio clay. And he fell in love with this Walton set, and he told me, he said, "Dad," he said, "I'd like to have one of those sets, but I can't afford to pay what they're asking for." So he said, "I'm going to build my own." Final product is what you see here. This is the reproduction, and this is the original.
I got to school, and I thought that I would study doctor, lawyer, dentist, accountant. And I get to University of Connecticut and I have to take a physics course for the purpose of getting into these various schools. And the teacher leaned over to me, he said, "You're a physicist, why don't you major in physics?" I said, "Could I get a job?" He said, "No." Okay? So I got a master's degree in physics from Cornell. I got out, couldn't get a job. I went to Bridgeport, where General Electric had a radio factory, and I applied for a job in the laboratory. No. But it turned out they had a radio factory there that needed experienced radio men. I happened to be an old radio man. I was put on the inspection area at the end of the line to see how the radios looked. Supposedly at the board, it said 6% rejects. The actual rejects are up 250%. And we had a little problem with that radio, which you've never heard of, but I'll tell you what it is because I have it here. We had an NWT test, noisy when tapped. you hit every radio with a rubber mallet, and sure enough, a lot of them stopped working. So if you tell the truth, you get fired. So I finally got a little disgusted, and I went and wrote up a report on what I saw in the factory and what was wrong with it. And I handed it in to the president. And next thing I know, I'm invited into a conference room, and there's about 15 or 20 foremen, all of them calling me a liar. And it looks as if I'm going to be out of a job altogether. So I go back to work in the factory, what I was doing, and the general foreman came over to see me. He says, "You know anybody else who will get fired for what you did? But I've been told to make you foreman of the parts department."
Wait a minute. If you take, this is a 1.5 volt carbon zinc cell. If you take 30 of these and you put them together, you come out with what is used as a radio battery. It's a B battery. It gives you 45 volts. B battery. Put that together with the first one, and now you have 90 volts. You can run a nice detector and a amplifier. But if you have a bigger, I have a freshman masterpiece. He used 135 volts.
Honey, no wonder you like three.
But then on a radio like that, it needs also a C supply. So you have 9 volts here.
We know I need batteries. I'm running out of film. Is this going to get... When you come to the end, tell me.
Almost there. Now, this is 43 pounds. But it's tough to carry around. So it helps to put it in a box. So Philco did exactly that. I put all this in one box, and it's a Philco.
Does anybody know how this works? Okay. Well, basically this part comes off. And if you look inside, you don't find the driver. set of earphones and you stick it over these two holes. This is called a radiophone speaker, and it was made by the Wilson Utensil Company of Dayton, Ohio. And that's exactly, if you ever look at the aluminum pots and things at the time, so they were primed for making this stuff, and basically they weren't radio manufacturers, but they jumped in there, you know, and for a while I guess they made a couple of bucks out of it.
The way this works is you stick a nickel in here and it plays the next record. You don't know what it's going to play. So they very quickly came up with a design for a selectable one because I don't think this was going to work out too well.
Show the man here is standing alongside of a special casket he ordered with a radio built in it. Through it, he expects to be able to hear what is going on in the world after he dies.
My name is John Colo. I'm the proprietor of the Miracle Radio Shop. My motto is, if I fix it, it's a miracle. So anyway, in the past, people have brought in some really nice home brews. And, you know, quality workmanship, attention to detail, nice cabinetry, etc. Well, I decided I wanted to show you folks the other side of the realm, the dark side. Dark side. This is a 5-tube AC/DC superhet, All-American 5. Entirely homebrewed, crazy mix of parts. Our hero used a 35 L6 instead of a 50 L6, necessitating this series of dropping. It's a strange one. You're welcome to come and take a look at it afterwards. Of course, it's absolutely worthless, but it's fun. Here's the cabinet. It was not made by Mendy.
Made by Manny.
Oh, not Mendy, is that the brand?
Not Mendy. Yeah, not Mendy. And this is a not Hammerland here. This is a homemade 12-tube hand receiver. There's a lot of work here. It's not particularly well done, but it uses plug-in coils. I wound all these coils using pill bottles, tube bases, nail polish.
Anything that was around.
It's really amazing. This was built, believe it or not, it says on here in, where is it, July 1981. So it was obviously a labor of love or a labor of fun. Somebody had fun, and I guess that's the key to the hobby.
This was the worst looking piece of garbage I ever saw. It had been sitting in water, and all of the veneer on the bottom was just curling out on both sides. It was really a basket case. Tony Flanagan, the founding president of the club, had gotten pretty good at woodworking. He was restoring radios of the 30s, wooden radios, and so he asked me if I'd like to come over and he'd show me how to restore a wooden radio. So I said, well, how about I bring over this thing I have in the shed? He said, yeah, bring it over whatever you want. Well, when I brought it over, he said, you would bring the worst looking thing. And because Tony helped me work on it, and I was over his place maybe 3 or 4 times for an afternoon each time, you know, it's really a fond memory of mine that he showed me how to work on the wood radios, and so I'll never want to give up this piece.
I decided I wanted to make a tube plaque or something just to line up the tube so you could display. And finally, just last weekend, I decided, let me just put this thing together. Anyway, as I said, it started out like a year ago, and I found it last week, so if that gives any indication how long it's going to take me to do that one there. And there it is.
How is it mounted? Did you knock off the tips or what?
I drilled holes for the pins. I just sat there and I drilled every single hole.
Gee.
It's a socket, and you can't even put it one way, you have to spin it right to the key and goes right down. So I sat there and I just made marks and I drilled holes for all the pins.
I wonder it took you years.
It's a Zenith turntable. My daughter was very interested in it because she likes 50s and 60s stuff. and she calls it my musical toilet seat.
Particular piece, and I also was able to get a really nice example of the Bakelite version of the same chassis. I had imported September. I had them brought in. I did a little bit of trading. And right now I've got one of all of the VE sets, one of all 4 of them. So this is an interesting piece.
So this opening on the side here is not an 8-track player?
No, this is not.
Some guy bought, must have been a boxcar full of these from somebody in China, and he was selling these one at a time. You know how they'll do that? One at a time. And people have been $30, $50, $60, and I'm thinking like, these people are nuts. Finally, some guy, $112.50. Now, I don't know how he felt when it came in the mail and he saw this.
I wasn't happy with it.
It's, that's it. It doesn't have a record.
Does it play the record? Listen. Is that what it's doing?
It's playing a record.
And it's got a microgroove needle on it?
It's got a needle in it, and it's got a...
What speed is that going at?
It plays 33s, it plays 78s, I've played Edison vertical cut records with it. It plays all at the same speed, which is different depending on how level the record is.
It shows the deluxe 39160 RX Coco radio. The lady seated here, she's operating the mystery control. I made a very lasting impression with the judges of the contest because I had a little technical problem with the receiver. As you know, it uses long wave as the receiver of the pulses from the remote control. And in a room full of dimmers and computers and all the noise generated by the hotel, I had a little problem with the Coco going on its own, raising the volume up to ear-splitting levels.
This is a little crystal receiver with a 1-transistor audio amplifier, a little Raytheon CK722, which is one of the first mass-produced transistors, and it's powered by 4 little international rectifier B2M solar cells. So you sit this thing out in the sun and connect up an antenna and ground, and it plays. I couldn't get it to work, but I thought the idea was really clever. It uses a really early-looking 1N34, 1N34A crystal diode, and I thought, this was really, really clever. And then one day, to my amazement, I'm going through some old CQ magazines, and here's this ad: "Build this solar-powered radio."
This is a 1946 RCA Model 621 TS, and it is the first television set sold in the United States that operated on the present standards, which is 525 lines with FM audio.
It had like a small 3-inch screen, but it had this huge magnifying glass, okay? So for a kid, and I remember the first show that we watched, I believe it was Superman, but I said the greatest thing that I got a kick out of was not so much the TV itself, but I used to like to put my hand behind the glass and magnify them, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. If the thing didn't even play, it still would have been a trick.
My little predictive TV. You have to watch this when you're drunk, so it looks like it's you can't see, but.
Dad saved up. He was a carpenter, self-employed. He saved up enough money to buy a used Motorola 7-inch, and it worked great. We used to watch The Lone Ranger, and I just can remember all the good shows on it. But if you recall, a lot of these sets had a tendency to start rolling. The rolling circuits didn't seem to last too long. And this one started to roll, and Dad didn't have enough money to get it repaired. I think it was a $3 service charge back then, and he just didn't have that money to spend. But being a carpenter, he took the TV, the knob was in the back, so you had to keep jumping up and reaching around the back. He took the TV, turned it upside down, put a couple screw eyes in the bottom, put a wood dowel through the screw eyes, put a rubber band around the dowel and up to the knob, got a little piece of surgical tubing and another dowel, and he could sit in the chair and he could do this. We could watch TV.
My father gave me this radio. And my father worked for Philco before the war, and amazingly enough, and believe it or not, the first time I got it home and plugged it in, Glenn Miller was playing one. I couldn't believe it.
The real reason why why they bought it for me is that the lady on the tube here reminds them of somebody near and dear to me.
She got some anecdotes.
I'll leave it on the table up here if anybody wants to look at it.
Before Ludlow starts his talk, does anybody notice anything interesting about Ludlow's attire tonight?
He's very bright.
Yes, he is. Thanks to Rima.
Better be right or your great big venture goes wrong.
You know, there's a lot of hazardous voltages in some of that TV equipment, and if you're not careful, you can end up like this poor television cameraman here, who obviously has had some trouble with some dangerous voltages in RF there. On the other side of the coin, if you're not dead but you're thinking about the afterlife, you can see about St. Clair. St. Clair, this is serious, and I want to be careful because we're in a church. St. Clair is the patron saint of television. It says so right on this little plaque here.
This is an ordinary rate receiving tube envelope with a light bulb base on it. It's got the RCA logo inside. It lights up with neon. The price was like 69 cents in 1936, something like that. And there are some of these, not a lot of them around. This one came to me through absolute pure blind luck. I go out and I buy a box of transmitting tubes, one of those kind of marginal deals where it isn't really worth it to buy the box anyway. I get it home, and sure enough, at the bottom of the box is this guy. So you get the RCA logo. Glows in the dark. There you go. Right. Take a flash. I feel like the Statue of Liberty.
Anyway, the interesting thing about this radio, I figured I can't go wrong. It's got the globes in it. Well, Marty was over at my house a while back, and he's poking around looking at this radio. He says, "Hey, none of these tubes belong in here."
Is this homebrew, or at least it looks like a homebrew RF amplifier, ham radio amplifier. Now here's the crazy story behind this. Well, I got this home, and I go to look at an old ARRL handbook to learn about the 811A, and you know, I just knew it was a big old triode. And I find, to my utter amazement, this unit. Not somebody's copy. This is it.
The guys who were helping out at John's house know. He would say, if you see a radio you like, let me know. We'll work something out. So I said, well, how about this, John? He said, oh, you had to pick that one. This is the only radio my wife likes. So she comes down and she looks at it and she says, oh yeah, that's the one I like, the color. I said, yeah, but look where it is. It's behind these things with dust on it. The first thing I would do is take this thing and do it over and fix it up and use it in my kitchen, which is what I'm doing now. And she heard that and she says, okay, I'll sell it to you. And John, so, you know, he was a little upset about it, but he went ahead and took my money.
I was looking all over eBay to buy an Addison radio, all right, the nice skyscraper one, and I finally found one on eBay, and as a matter of fact, the price was right, so I decided to buy it. This is about the only type of Addison radio.
When I saw this, I couldn't believe it. Some individual decided he was going to try to do a disco version of the 45 phonograph. Look at this.
Oh!
Wow, let's do that.
Ooh. Then you're stuck with the driver problem. In most cases, the driver is made of pot metal, just like the neck connection, and it's distorted, crumbling, perhaps missing. And you can buy reproduction parts, but it becomes more expensive than the speaker's worth. So my solution to that was to take a small dial.
I picked up this, I don't know what to call this, consolette, what do you want to call it. This was on eBay, and when you see it on eBay, I couldn't tell if it was a full-size console or a little tiny thing like it is. So I was a little surprised when I got it.
And I came across this Northern Electric 48. Now this is a Canadian version of Western Electric, and this is a 6-tube superhet using Western Electric 215 tubes. And in Canada, I believe this was sold for consumer use. And I'll tell you that I got it locally in Asbury Park recently for a song.
You were the only radio guy at the auction.
That's right. Absolutely right. One bit.
Catalyst. Emerson. Lovely. I picked it up about 20 years ago in the flea market. Are you ready? It cost me 50 cents.
I saw the price tag $75, and I knew right away I was going to spend $75 for it. So she says, "Oh, I'll sell it to you for $50." So I said, "Okay, does it work?" "Oh yeah, plug it in." I said, "Okay." She plugged it in. It started making some noise. Looked like it was going to come on. I'm saying, "Oh, now I'm gonna, now I'm thinking, $50." I'm like, next thing you know, I smell something. So, so I open up the back. I mean, it's in really, really good shape. I open up the back and I see smoke coming out from the bottom. So right away, we pull the plug out. So she says, $10. I don't want nothing to do with the radio. I learned. So I said, well, she dropped from 75 to 50 to 10 pretty quick. I'm getting this for $5.
I thought these were cool, and I don't know, I had a half a dozen or so, and I made them available in the club for, a couple of bucks, and everybody seemed to be really glad to get them. Except I had one left over that, I had one for myself, and I had this one left over, and I didn't need two. I said, what am I going to do with this? I said, well, let me put it up on the internet. And I put it up on the internet, and there's some guy out there to whom this shirt was worth $37. This is like really scary, but I pointed that out to my wife too. So I said, look, see, there's a guy out there that's like much, much worse than me.
Well, a few years ago, I was in an antique shop, more of a junk shop, and I was milling around. And a gentleman had a lot of stuff in cardboard boxes. So I came across one box. I asked him what he wanted for the box. So he started pulling stuff out and giving me he wanted like $100, whatever was in it. I have to get the price. I said, no, I want the box. He says, no, you can have one here. And he pulls out another. No, I want this particular box. And he looked at me like I was from Mars. So $1 later, I walked out with a box. And what it is, it says Emerson Radio, Model 539.
Here's another radio. This one's made by RCA. And here's your volume and your tuning. But the interesting thing is, you can play records on it this way. The thing about this is, it's a lot of fun. Hey, this is different. Slide this in, and it's fun for about 3 records, and then it's very tiring. They offered it in 2 color schemes. This is for the laid-back kind of person, and then they offered this to the other type of person.
And I have 2 items in here that actually constitute a theme, and I don't dare anybody to figure out what the theme is, but see if you can figure that out afterwards. One of my most recent acquisitions is a very nice microphone, which I picked up just a little while ago. And This is an RCA 77DX. It's in perfect working order. One of the only problems that I've had with it is that in my business of video production, I've had to really worry about drool getting on it when the voiceover guys come over and they all want to use it. The other item that I brought in today is I have a little 6-transistor channel master radio.
Can we guess at the connection right now?
Guess at the connection. I've been collecting stuff off and on for about 30 years, and any of you who know me and who've had a chance to see my collection, a lot of it is indistinguishable from compost, except it has some tungsten in it. The theme amongst these two items is that they're in pretty nice shape.
But I have this thing sitting around my home, this little box with the twin leads coming out of it, knob on the front, and I'm really going to borrow Ben's tongue here. Look this way, Ben. Look at the camera. And what happens when you turn this knob?
In the spirit of the national emergency we're having, whatever, I figure we have to just round up the troops and, well, pitch in our part. And so, back in the post-war days, when I was about 15 years old, I joined the Civil Defense of Elizabeth, New Jersey as a radio operator, being that I was a ham radio operator at the time.
Looks like a soda.
And they issued me.
Soda?
They recycled it.
White coat
They issued me this lovely uniform. My CD.
Which item with a hand grenade?
The hat, I didn't even know I had the hat. And these Lee's overalls that say 5'8" to 5'11". Well, it must be like 23 at the waist, because I can't get the clothes anymore.
It shrunk.
It shrunk, right? It's cotton. Anyway, I started, and the badge. Elizabeth, New Jersey.
You're official. You got your decoder ring too?
Yeah.
Decoder ring?
Marty, did you pick that spot on purpose? Because the flag is right behind you.